Alright, I accidentally turned on the wrong little doohickey over here, so we should have sound now. Apologies for the delay. Not sure how many we got on. 3 so far. um, I'm quite tired today. That's why we're drinking an energy drink right now, not lifting. But most of you guys already know how this works. Drop your questions in the chat, and I will answer them as they come in. Doesn't have to be PE specific, but that's usually how these things go. But yeah, not much updates for me personally. Trying to even think. I've been just trying to get on the content train in general, just by making a lot of content here on YouTube. Slowly working, you know, the algorithm and all that jazz. But man, this stuff is actually a full-time job, YouTube on its own. Cavitation's going pretty well, surprisingly. I haven't been targeting this area that much. So for those who don't know, cavitation's like cool sculpting, but with sound waves. So you can do it at home pretty easily. And like this part is down 4 millimeters or so. And I've only targeted it once or twice compared to my front section here. I've been doing practically 3 to 4 times a week. And this is showing a lot more improvement than this, which is a little weird, but we'll figure it out as we go. Is the chat showing for you guys? It doesn't look like it's showing on screen. There we go. So I need to render it. That's strange. Okay. Hi, Tony. Hey, man, you was right about getting a new cylinder. What happens when you're too big for your current pump? Normally, that shit gets pushed to length, but very unoptimally. So basically, for it to be a length pump, your entire dick has to fill the tube, right? So if, let's say you're a little more wide than thick, so you got more X dimension than Z dimension, you are going to have to fill the Z dimension before it becomes a length focused thing, and that's usually all edema. So in most cases, I just tell people to focus on using like a length device for length, so hangers, extenders, or the manuals too. But yeah, length pumping is pretty much terrible, and that's the only thing a tight cylinder is good for. But Tony, how would you do manuals for length now? Okay, so form.peakmalphysique, I literally just dropped a beginner's manual routine. Same idea as 2023. It's just more numerous sets because your arms don't tire out as much. But in general, nothing's really changed except, like from my practices from 10 years ago, except my offhand is going to hold my skin back at the base, so that way my skin stretches with my dick and it looks a lot bigger 3 to 4 years from now because the skin actually grew with my dick. Infina, I'm glad you had a good workout this morning. I did not. My fasted cardio was not fun this morning. Is it viable, asks Dino Lab, if I get the biggest kit and do length manuals until I can afford an extender? Also, the biggest kit help with girth. Some people say it's better to do length first, but you don't know. Okay, so first of all, if you're talking about the biggest box on Peak Physique, that comes with a vacuum hanger, so you don't even have to do manuals. You just need some way to attach weight. We include the carabiner clip. That's how you can attach things to the vacuum bell. You just need some kind of weight. Like cans of food work pretty well for this because they're going to be about a pound each. So 4 cans in a plastic bag, hang it, and you're doing a basic hanging routine right then and there. I would strongly recommend getting an extender eventually, but is not the end of the world. Like I gained an inch just hanging. I've gained an inch with just manuals, and I've gained an inch with an extender at this point. So like they're all effective. I just think extenders are the most easy to use long term. But like we're talking like you could gain like an inch before you need an extender. So don't rush it if you don't have the funds for it. Okay, Diamond Jokes and Mod Jokes ask Linus, what erection percentage? So Diamond Jokes, that's going to be a massage mechanic. That's going to be like 40 to 60%. So think of it like getting a chub. You're still able to bend it pretty easily, but if you can press, there's some pushback from the blood in your penis. Then Mod Jokes is going to be 90 to 100% erect, and it just depends on like your comfort level. Some people notice like if you're not fully erect, you get better expansion. Excuse me, this is carbonated, so I'm going to be burping a lot. But so 90% mod jokes to 100% mod jokes, and that's because it's mimicking pumping and forcing expansion. Hitman. Bought an electric pump, water, air, 21 centimeter. Girth doesn't fill the pump on 5.7 to 5.8 and pump and still got room, but training for both. Okay, so if you really want both, you need to do manuals or some kind of stretching routine for it because the collagen fibrils, not the collagen fibrils, the stem cells in the penis, they're called fibroblasts. When you look at, sorry, blanking, tendons and ligaments, they're called fibroblasts, and that's what's responsible for collagen upkeep. Those follow the direction of stretch. So if you're trying to gain length, you need to stretch it in length a bit. If you're trying to gain girth, you need to literally stretch in the girth direction, the width. So that's going to be your overexpansion, elongation. It's debatable if you can gain both efficiently at the same time. Thoughts on wearing a full sleeve while pumping to prevent edema? I think that's actually going to limit expansion more than it is going to limit edema. That's going to make it actually a little bit better for length than anything else because you have that extra compressive force and that pressure then needs to shoot up the shaft. I wouldn't recommend it. If you're trying to limit edema, potentially change the size of your tube, get a pump sleeve, just like a normal one at the bottom of the cylinder to limit skin contact with the bottom of the vacuum pressure. And then that little compression around the skin for the opening is going to limit how much water can travel under your skin. But ideally, shorter sets, less pressure, and that pump sleeve should be enough to limit edema. The small one. Okay, Mike, my unit is hard while flaccid but not shriveled, and my erections are not good. What could it be? Tissue fatigue? I have pump, heat pad, and cock rings. Can you give me a step-by-step healing routine? So if your D is hard and you just started, like your flaccid's a little bit stiff, when you just start out, that's a sign that the tissue is responding to the stimulus, but it doesn't know what to do, so it kind of just contracts a bit. If you've been doing PE for a while, if you have that kind of response, it's an sign of overwork. So first take a couple days off, see if that improves anything. Ideally like a whole week, and you should be reset if it's just like overwork. But to me, it could also be pelvic floor strain, and Hank doesn't necessarily like when I tell people to do this, but like massage your taint between like the leg and pelvis, and that's going to be the ischiocavernous muscle. This is already doesn't have ads, so I don't have to worry about gesturing to my groin too much. Anyway, but working the ischiocavernous muscle, and then if you looked at my most recent video, not my most recent video, my second most recent video, it's part 1, basics of growth. Like in the first 10 minutes, I'm talking about erection quality. I show 2 different stretches, just the regular deep squat and frog pose. Do something similar like that 2 or 3 times a day for 30 seconds, and that should help open up your pelvic floor if that's the issue. But I'd need more information to be sure. Mr. Tula, congrats on your new project. Thank you. I hope it goes well. Me too. And every guy completes the project. So we have contingencies for that. So like I said, we had 100 people come in. I whittled it down to 15. So if one of these guys has to drop out for whatever reason, I have another guy to take his place if they want. If not, I literally have access to 130,000 people on r/getting bigger. I just have to make an email and pick. My dog wants outside. I will be right back. There might be a chance you'd still be able to hear me. I'm coming, Opal. But man, it's like 2 days until fall official, and it's 80 degrees here. And I don't live in a particularly warm area. This is Pittsburgh. So like we get similar weather to like New York. And it's just not fun. I hate how it constantly changes here. Okay. clamp or pump for better girth size gain. So like I would say, historically speaking, there is more evidence of pumps working to gain girth. Um, what I teach is about 20 minutes of pumping for girth, and then about 2 to 3 times a week, you're gonna wear clamps for 10 minutes straight, and that's it. And that's to maximize the hypoxic stimulant. Um, but ideally, pumping is going to just be better in general because you don't have to worry about your own body's ability to produce pressure, and you're going to be able to measure it much better. Caffeinated steak. Any tips for someone only focusing on girth? So if you're using a pump AM, PM, about 70% of the pressure that you do normally just for 10 minutes, and this is going to train the shape a lot better. This has been huge for my girth lately. Like I went from like about 6 inches to about 6 1/4 in 5 weeks with the addition of that, with vibrations obviously, but like there's definitely something to it. And basically if you train the shape to be bigger longer for like a literally longer period of time, it's going to take that shape more than likely. I do not have the money for a big ass gold medal for whoever wins the gainathon. And honestly, someone pointed out in a rather facetious comment that me motivating them with money for like a cash prize is gonna hurt the results, so I might just pay everyone involved. It's probably the best way to go about it. Am I like sitting behind the chat? Let me check the OBS. No. Okay. Oh, you're talking about me getting the world's largest egg. I doubt it. Like, for example, Perv sometimes does custom size apex extenders, like longer than as big as it is. And that thing can hold literally an 11-inch cock. So there's definitely already guys way bigger than me, and like I do enjoy sex as it is. I don't want to make it more complicated than it has to be. So my wife's gonna have a limit, and I'm gonna probably stick with that limit. Okay, stay in a lab. I'm convinced I'll save up and get the biggest kit. Anything else I should add? My budget is about $250. I'm waiting for the strongest start off that amount. Okay. So I'm not sure what Massive Novelties has right now. Give me 1 second. Novelties. Where is it? So if you don't mind doing some of the building yourself, get the Apex DIY kit from Massive Novelties. It's practically the same thing, except the base is plastic instead of metal. And then you just have to put it together yourself. But like it will take you maybe 5 minutes to build it yourself. Okay. That's only $110 USD. I don't know if it's on like a pre-order right now, but like you can check out for yourself. And then if you go to Peak Mel Physique, and if you just go to Peak Mel Physique and get the big box, that's going to be literally everything else you need. And the big box I think is 109 right now. So between the big box and the Apex 3D printed DIY set, you can get everything you need for less than $220. And I've been really trying to get Massive Novelties to let me sell the cheaper one. But Perv has been ghosting me a bit lately. He's a busy dude, so I'm not too concerned. Anyway, that's what I would personally do if you're trying to get best bang for your buck. Apex DIY, big box kit, and then you should be good to go. Where is my chats? Okay, Mr. Tool, a 3-day of interval pumping using a Girth band, way less edema, and awesome flaccid. The EQ is better. Now that's interesting. So what I've noticed is that my EQ wanes a little bit with all this pumping, and I'm not just, it might just be like since the tissue is so stretched out that even though I'm having like a normal erection response, it's softer. But it's something to notice or like play around with later on. Okay, where are we at? We did that one. If not, Agent 12 will be replaced with Agent 34 if necessary. I have no idea what you're referencing, assuming with my uh, contestants on the Gameathon. Okay, Double Dragon's Collector. Is clamping better for retention training or for girth work? It is going to be girth work. Any kind of clamp is going to have a lot of occlusion associated with it. So that means we're limiting oxygen in the tissue, and that can potentially lead to issues long term. So like cock rings are okay because they're not nearly as restrictive, but like a full on clamp, you're gonna probably hurt yourself after 20 minutes without oxygen in the tissue. Clamping in general is pretty intense, and I don't like how popular it is because specifically it should be for people that have not done PE or have done PE for more than 6 months to a year, because that's how intense it is. If you don't know what kind of, I guess, intensity you can handle with like a penis pump, doing clamping is going to be relatively dangerous. Hello, Destroyer. Let's see. Just watched a video on collagen supplementation, says Hitman. Even though when the PE breaks down the collagen fibrils, what supplements with it mess with that function, or do you think there's no change while taking it? Okay, so you take collagen, right? Collagen goes into your stomach, has to be digested into base amino acids. So when it goes into your bloodstream, it then circulates, and then any other damaged collagen molecules or new collagen molecules have to be built piece by piece by piece. So there's no direct translation between the collagen that you take and the collagen produced, because it's just going to be base materials once it's broken down. Now, with the penis in particular, very low nutrient delivery. It's not like a tendon or a ligament that's expecting a lot of turnover. So any additional collagen is going to have very little impact long term with penis enlargement. It could definitely help with skin health. I think that's actually something that's underrated with penis enlargement, is that since we're constantly stretching the skin as well, that's going to get pretty dry and beat up pretty quick. So potentially collagen supplements just for that is worth it. But if we're expecting more gains of collagen, it makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, what are your chances to develop fibrosis by doing too much work? Fibrosis is the point where it causes veno-occlusive ED, the kind of ED that isn't the same as venous leak. Okay, so that's a deep question, Josh. Fibrosis can do two things. With PE, it's more likely to change your shape than it is going to limit erectile function, because that ED is going to be ED. That fibrosis is going to be particularly on the tunica albuginea because we're constantly stretching it, and it's not going to heal nearly as fast as anything inside the tunica albuginea. So the corpus cavernosum is going to heal a lot faster because it's literally a blood sponge. The nutrients come in and out of it quite quickly. So it's very unlikely that you'll cause fibrosis of the corpus cavernosum that will lead to that kind of erectile dysfunction. But like, if you get a lot of fibrosis on your tunica, you're going to be severely limiting your size and potentially causing something like Peyronie's long term. As for overwork, your body should tell you way beforehand that it is too much work. Pay attention to erectile function, pay attention to sensation. If you lose erectile function, that means you're probably doing too much work. So like minor cases of ED, like you can't get as hard some days, or it takes longer for you to get hard, that's a sign of overwork. If you start feeling a loss of sensation, that's also a sign of overwork, because there's a lot of inflammation in the tissue, and then that just kind of numbs out the nerves a bit. So in general, what me and Hank teach, and I guess Perv, because he's kind of like an offset of my stuff, is going to be pretty safe long term. Like, I've been doing this stuff for 10 years. The amount of fibrosis that I developed in like a 5-year span from using Bathmate, yeah, Bathmate, it's a longer story, actually disappeared once I switched to more of like a physiotherapy response to PE. What are my measurements? So right now I'm like 9 1/8 bone pressed, and then 6.2, just a little bit under 6 1/4 mid shaft erect girth. My base makes me look a lot thicker than I am, that goes up to about 7 at the true base, and then it tapers from 6.25 to 7. So I am quite large. I'm quite happy. If I did not make money off my dick and was not a 230-pound man, I probably would not be doing PE. But yeah. Okay, Halo with a loaded question. Do you agree that having a big D is extremely attractive for women? I think it's something every guy deep down knows, but outside sources say it does not matter. Okay. Some woman is going to be very attractive, but it's not going to be every woman. I would say a larger than average penis is going to have the same visual response as big boobs would. But there's going to be a certain point where the boobs are too damn big that some people are going to be turned off by how big it is. That's going to be a very good comparison to women. So, like, being above average with D's to double D's is probably going to be the most conventionally attractive on a woman. Conventionally, or conversely speaking, for a man, being about 6.5 to 7.5 inches is going to be the most attractive, conventionally speaking, for women. But it's not going to be everyone, and it's going to also depend on the woman's like body. So like if the woman is tiny, big dicks are going to be even bigger by like perspective. So like it is not just going to be one size fits all. Bigger is not always better, and biggest is not always best. But it really just depends on your partner. And my husky is whining to get in because it's 80 degrees out. I'll be right back. You are okay. Nope. Now, this was probably a mistake bringing her down because I have cables everywhere. But, yep. Okay. Very dumb question, but when the peak the peak male physique auto pump says 25.5. That's in kilopascals. Okay, so a kilopascal is about 3 inches of mercury of pressure. Sorry, she's very heavy. She's 80 pounds. Carrying her down steps is not easy. So give me 1 minute. But 25 kilopascals is going to be about 8 inches of mercury. A little bit on the higher end for a beginner pumping, but like my feeder sets are going to be a little lower than that, so it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly safe. Ideally, if we're dealing with kilopascals, 15 to 35, 40 kilopascals is going to be your working range. It just depends on your level. Let's say that I get to my dream body fat percentage and my fat pad stays the same. How much bone press do I need to gain? To gain 1.5 inches of non-bone press? Well, I think you just answered yourself, right? The only real-time bone press does not translate to non-bone press gains is when the skin pulls up from the hip as well. And this is what happened to me when I was predominantly hanging. I was getting progressively longer, but my skin was moving up with it. So like my base looked like it was moving with my dick, and people called me a liar. So in general, if you want a 7.5 inch bone press, non-bone press dick, anywhere between 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches longer is what you're going to need. So potentially you could need to be 9 inches bone press if you have a 1.5 inch fat pad. But you can use most of your bone press dick. Like it's something that skinny guys believe that fat does not compress, but it certainly does. I have like I would say 1/2 inch fat pad right now. When I lay down, it's completely flat. Like I can literally see my finger touching the bone. So like it really depends on how tight your skin is too. It's a very mixed bag. Okay, Hitman, hey, I'm just trying to get to 8x6. I may not be the biggest, but I know I'll be getting the job done. 8x6 is fucking huge. Like, for the most part, it is going to be bigger than most porn stars. Like, unless you're looking at literally the monster cocks. And those guys are going to be maybe 9 inches non-bone pressed at most. So 8x6 is going to be probably the biggest that most women will see, unless they're like size queens and actively hunting for it. Halo, back to KPA. 15 seems very low and 35 seems very painful, or is that only experience then? So like 15 kilopascals is going to be roughly 5 inches of mercury. That's going to be like the natural erection pressure for most guys starting out. So if it feels like nothing, pump up a little bit more, but don't go all the way up to 35, especially if you have dick filler. I remember you having injections of some sort, and doing that much pressure is going to probably break it down faster than anything else. Oh, Halo, crazy to think that you're doing this work for free. Thank you so much. You're welcome, but like, I don't think people have realized my business model, and I'm just gonna, guys, let you know on a secret. Most of my content is for free, and because I'm able to build trust with you guys this way, you're more likely to buy my products compared to my competitors, right? This was never the intent, but like when Hank and I went into business, this is what we noticed. Since you come to us for information, and since our products are so fairly priced, it is very hard for people to look for anywhere else to get their stuff from. And a lot of what we did with our business was set up to put pressure on the other sellers in the market, and they haven't moved, and we keep continually increase in sales because they are very sticky with their prices. Meanwhile, we're trying to do floor pricing, but uh this is a topic for another like a literal business podcast. But Robert frenulum, 1 second sharp pain continued, no pain sense. Would pumping at 3 to 4 inches of mercury help? Never torn the frenulum nerve, or just anything to do for a week or two? So normally you should pump, but I distinctly remember that you've been doing PE for basically a year straight. It's time to give your dick a nice needed rest. Uh, you could do some, I don't even know if that's going to be good for you with the frenulum injury, but like edging, for example, would be enough to pull in fresh blood and potentially more nutrients. But like even then, dude, if you have a relatively active sex life still, then you don't really need to do anything. Just let it do its thing. If you do lose any size in this week, I guarantee you'll come back in the next 2. So just stick with it. I know it's hard not to try to gain, but like, especially if it's very specific to guys that go to the gym, it's very hard to turn it off because you're so used to being in that habit. But trust me, right now, what you need right now is a relatively midterm break. Hello, Forsaken. Okay. Uh, can you develop hard flaccid from pumping or any serious things when you stay in the range mentioned? So the main reason people develop hard flaccids while pumping is if they kegel. So let's just kind of explain it. You got a dick pump on, right? If it's already pulling blood in, and then you try to force more blood into it, that can kind of cause a pressure imbalance on your pelvic floor, and then your muscle basically hits a wall and then spasms and then contracts, and that's how you can develop hard flaccid. So ideally, don't kegel while pumping. It's pretty easy to do. Some people just have very overactive pelvic floors. Hello, honey. But main thing you gotta be careful of with pumping, and it's still relatively rare, is lymphatic issues. So that's when you get a lot of swelling with pumping. It's basically unavoidable. But these channels that are responsible for lymph buildup, the little lymph channels, can sometimes clog. That's one of the more nuisance injuries with PE. They take a while to heal, but like it's relatively benign. Main thing is just don't do anything with your dick for a week or 2 while it clears out. Potentially go to a urologist or just a general doctor to get a steroid to help clear out that lymph. But in general, not a huge deal either. Pumping is very safe, to be honest. Like here in the States, the US government spends like $36 million a year on dick pumps for erectile dysfunction treatment. It is a relatively well-known device, like medically speaking. Uh, in Halo, I have the best, or the Peak Male Physique auto pump is the best pumping device I can imagine. Well, we're trying to do a little bit better. No real comment on that other than that we are trying to release like a specific pump that you can control with an app and everything else. Makes PE super easy, and then we can steal your data from your pumping sessions and then use that to like tweak our recommendations as we go. But that's really down the line. Okay, Mr. Tula, on mainmail.com, stars of a monster D, do you think that is smaller than you right now? I'm not gonna look up porn, but the problem is that most guys in porn are gonna have a slimmer build, if you catch my drift. So like, I am taller than 9 out of every 10 men. Okay, so I'm 6'1". Most guys are gonna be about here on me. Some guys are gonna be about here on me, and most of those guys are gonna be more likely to be selected in porn, especially if I have like a 7-inch dick. Then it's hard to tell just because I don't have any like real perspective other than my Amazoness of a wife who has hands as big as mine. So my dick never looks like spectacularly big in real world terms, but that's okay. I get it. I would assume that I know I'm about as big as Danny D right now, if that makes sense. The only reason why I know that is because I have like his sleeve that I use to compare to myself. Like, okay, is this legitimate? And I'm just about as big as him. But yeah, like I'm probably as big, if not a little bigger, depending on like what man you're talking about. It's particularly in straight porn. There's probably some gigantic men in gay porn that I don't know about, but you know. Okay, Hitman. I I was never got told I was small, but I was never told I was big either. Maybe because I'm a 6'3" black man, and woman expected me 8 by 6 and 7.5 by 5.7 yesterday. Um, I mean, that's not too much information. That's what we're here to talk about, right? So Hank had a very similar issue. He is 6'5", and he was only 7 by 5. So he had the expectation of being the size of a horse when he wasn't, and that's what really kind of set him down his villain path, as he would put it. But a lot of women just don't like giving you that satisfaction because the men with ego are very hard to deal with. So, and additionally, a lot of women are slut shamed for liking big dicks. So, like, even if they do enjoy it, they're not going to mention it because that makes them a slut. So, like, there's a lot of things going on with it. You, right now, are objectively big, borderline huge based off of, like, my own statistics. But a lot of women, frankly, aren't going to tell you it unless, like, they're trying to stroke your ego. What do you want? BD, the first time I put the pressure pump on my dick, how... Okay, BD, the first time I put the pump on my dick, how fast do I increase the pressure as a beginner to pumping? I do a pulse a second, so like that. It's not going to be that fast. It's going to take you like 10 to 20 seconds to get the pressure, and that's totally fine unless you have a really small tube. If you have a really small tube, you probably want a bigger one. But in general, one pulse a second is going to be pretty safe. And you can, if you feel like it's getting too intense, do half pulses all the way up for a second. Vital facets. How much would a brief consultation cost? The problem is I don't have time to do it. That's why I have not put them in stock on Peak Male Physique. Is like literally each one of those takes me an hour just to talk to you, right? And an hour to 2 hours to prep before the consultations. So like between all the YouTube stuff and everything else, I cannot squeeze it into my day. And it kind of sucks because it would be, quite frankly, very easy money. Like if I did one of those or two of those a day, we are talking what? Five, so 1,000. I'm actually kind of good at math. That'd be 1,000 a week times four. That'd be an additional $4,000 of income just for myself per month. But like, I just can't make it work. And I also cancel coaching for that reason. It's just not fair to my clients that I can't get back to them in a timely manner. All right. Uh, what's the worst injury you can ever imagine for conventional PE? Can you break your D or something like that? Oh, you can definitely do damage. For the most part, the worst I've seen is someone like literally use like something they used to neuter goats with, and they literally castrated themselves because I think they're doing shock content more than anything, but like they literally killed their dick and then had it surgically removed after the fact. That's not what we teach. And even then, no one ever used these castrating tools. But like that is by far the worst injury that I've seen. The worst injury I've seen this year is that someone had blood on their clamp after the fact because it basically got stuck on them and they had to like rip it off and that ripped some skin. But in general, the worst thing that you can get from PE, like what most people will have issues with, is going to be either blisters or minor pelvic floor strain. Blisters come from vacuum hanging. It's just because you have pressure right on the tip. As the pressure fills out the glands or the cup, sometimes your skin becomes not sticky to each other, and that causes a little bubble. That's what a blister is. It's really a minor injury. It takes maybe 2 weeks to heal, and it's not going to cause any issues long term unless you keep getting blisters in the same place again and again and again. Then we're going to switch to some other kind of device. Then pelvic floor strain is just from overdoing it or kegling while doing an exercise. Okay, what are your thoughts on Mike from Total Man? His videos appear to be legitimate and not bullshit like Basim. Didn't watch him, so I couldn't tell you. I know a lot of people like him. Um, that's all I can really say. I know he's focusing more on sex health stuff right now, which is whatever. It's not my market, but I have real no comment. I don't know the guy. That's about it. Okay. I don't really have beef with anyone except for the moderators on r/ getting bigger. I guess I used to have beef with M9 and then Basim more than anything else right now. So where are we at? Ethan, why after a long time on PE my skin became thicker and rough and darker in some parts? It's not like edema. I have the same skin if 1 week off. How to reverse it without a chemical peel? So first of all, chemical peels aren't that dangerous. Literally, your top layer of skin, like your first 5 to 50 layers of skin, are dead skin cells. So like you can remove up to 50 of them before you get to like the actual living tissue. So chemical peel is relatively safe. Uh, you can do later ones, no issue. The darker skin is literally because one, like if you never had like broken blood vessels or anything, you are literally stretching your skin, and that's going to cause the skin to get bigger and thicker, and that's going to lead to more blood supply, and that's why it's going to be brown. Now, if it's more rough, you need to moisturize. That's simple. But over time, if you moisturize enough, take enough time off from PE, you'll have normal-ish dick skin. It'll just be a bit thicker, not the end of the world. Okay, Infinite. Loads of girls I've encountered have boasted or hyped up the importance of having a good D size, minimum 6 inches and above. I don't know how many women would actually know what 6 inches was when it was just thrown in their face, right? So, like, I don't know if my tape measure is down here. Give me 1 second. Hmm. It is not. Wait, found it. But this is 6 inches. Again, I'm a very large man. That's going to be just two of my hands, my man hands. Um, I think most women tend to over exaggerate size by about 15%. So, like, a 5 inch dick is going to be actually a 6 inch dick to them. And then, like, when you get to 8 inches, that's going to be like 10 inches to them. So, I don't think dick size is not that important. I mean, dick size is relatively important if it's important to you. But, like, I think a lot of women talk a lot of shit, especially when they're young, before they actually experience what a big dick is. So, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Okay, donkey teeth. I noticed I have very minor edema that goes away quickly after pumping. I do 2 minutes on, then 2 minutes off. Work my way up to 20 minutes max. Is this a good game plan? So, like, if you're doing what I teach, don't take the time off between sets. 2 minutes release, 2 minutes pump back up. Wait, so 2 minutes with pressure, release, pump back up immediately after. Repeat for about 10 minutes total to start. You're going to get more edema this way, but edema is not necessarily bad. And this is what's actually going to lead to like erectile function improvements and size changes over time, is that chronic pressure. That 2 minutes off is probably more hurtful to gains than anything else when you're doing it so frequently. General rule of thumb is like every 5 to 10 minutes you take 3 to 5 minutes off, but like 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off is going to be relatively overkill. Is there any way to make your flaccid state bigger? Yes or no? Yeah, it's so like I started at about 4 inches flaccid, and I am now like 6.5 inches flaccid. So generally speaking, the bigger your dick gets erect, the bigger your flaccid will get. And with PE in particular, since we're building up more collagen, the elastin that makes your dick tight when flaccid is not going to be able to pull it as tight. So the collagen that you're building up is going to have more of a shower effect long term. Additionally, you could try stuff like L-citrulline and potentially Cialis if you're okay taking drugs to like fill it out and make it more fluffed up throughout the day. And the IT guy is on. Hello, Waking Dreams. Okay, I've heard putting a string or two under soft clamps or cock rings make it removal easy and safe. I never thought of that, but it makes a lot of sense. My main issue is you probably want actually like 2 straps on the side, so that way you can actually get a lot of pull force and then completely take it off. Because what I normally do is 2 fingers, open the fingers, pull up, and then take off the shaft. But like that makes a lot of sense. Max growth someone can have, literally, dude, there is no like set limit to how much your dick can grow. Like you can do PE for 20 years. So if you do take enough breaks and avoid strength adaptation by just taking breaks, you could literally gain over 5 inches in a 20-year period. The problem is, one, finding a partner that is going to be willing to go from, let's say, 6 inches to 11 inches over a course of 20 years, going to be relatively rare. And the cost benefit analysis is like after 8 inches, motivation becomes very waning. So most guys are going to be gaining maybe 1 to 2 inches and be perfectly happy with that, because that's literally like doubling the size of your dick in total volume. TJM, I have not looked at the Vertica stuff I sent. I am extremely sorry. I have been very busy. It has been on the back of my mind, though. I have not forgotten. I do think we talked about it a bit. Basically, since it's radio frequency can help specifically tighten collagen from the research I looked at. But like in any radio frequency, depending on the frequency, it does different things to tissues. So like if they have the right frequency for their wavelengths, they could potentially stimulate stem cells that way, and that's how they're going to produce more collagen. So there's definitely something to it. I just have not had the time to give it due diligence. Can I decrease the pressure on the manual pump if, for example, I pump too high? Yes. If you have the Peak Physique pump, or really any like silver handle pump or golden handle pump, it's going to have like a little circle on the top and squeeze here. There's going to be a little button or knob that you twist to release the pressure. Mine happen to be buttons, so you click the button, pressure releases, you're good to go. If it ever gets stuck for whatever reason, just stick your finger into the base of the cylinder, like, you know, come up and under, push in your skin a bit, and then all the pressure is going to release. That's how I used to take off pumps before I realized that's what the button was for. Daddy Beady, I do not plan on being a dad for at least another 4 years. This shit takes way too much of my time. Anyway, Halo, when you have the symptoms of overworking your D, like you said, symptoms like light ED, weak sensitivity, what should you recommend? Taking days off, a few days off, literally a week off, and then reevaluate your routine. You need to overcompensate for any potential nagging fatigue that you have, and collagen takes at least 3 days to fully come back to baseline. Um, so like a week's going to be more than enough depending when your last session was. But yeah, it's really the cure is rest and then reevaluating how much work you're doing. How would I go about maximizing edema when air pumping, trying foreskin restoration? Tried to super chat it, but it didn't work. It's all good. I don't need your money, my guy. So if you're trying to maximize edema, time under time in the pump is going to be your best way. And like potentially, if you're just trying to stretch the skin, go in at a very low pressure flaccid and like wear it for 2 or 3 hours, and you're going to stretch literally nothing but the skin because your dick is not aroused whatsoever, but your skin is just going to fill and bloat with edema. They used to teach this on Thunder's Place, released there as a forum like that. I tried it and like it wasn't fun, but it worked, you know, just to like fill in the skin. They said it was going to grow their dick though, but that didn't work for that. It did stretch my skin a lot though. Okay. Uh, I'll get to you in a second, TJ. I read yours first though. Thoughts on vibration and compression hanging? Is it possible? Would you expect it to work? Yeah, it would work. It's just if you're using the vibrator I am using, with the compression hanger and the vibrator, it's just not going to fit on your dick that well. So you would potentially need two smaller vibrators to do the same thing. That's something I got to think about later on, though. The science is the same. Compression or tension is tension. Vibration is vibration. It doesn't matter what the attachment mechanism is. So if you can make it work, go for it. I just don't think you want to have your vibrator resting against the male hanger. Okay, TJM. I've been using the Vibe unit with the Benz extender, laying down over my D that is spread out due to the fulcrum. I swear I've gained girth. Perhaps it's the Vibe plus fulcrum combo. Thought you would like to know. Okay, so I don't know if you're still pumping a lot, but like there's like an aftergrowth effect of vibration. So if you pump anywhere near the time you do the vibrating, that's going to help grow girth pretty fast. The fulcrum could have something to do with it, but to me, like the max, like the semi, you can say kind of like fluffs up your dick a bit while you're extending. I think that also plays a role into the girth gains long term, but like you probably have like a 20 to 40 minute window where if you pump right after vibrations, you're going to see pretty much accelerated girth gains along with it. And this is me talking out my ass right now because I have not given this much thought, but I would err on the side of caution that if you're pumping, that's probably it rather than the fulcrum, but I could be wrong. Okay. Hey, BD, my goal is 6 inches. Okay. Go for it. It's it's a good size, I would assume. It just depends on your partner more than anything else, right? A lot of people that like start average don't realize how nice it would be to be average if they already like compared to someone that's like 4 inches. So like guys are like 5 inches, man, I'd love to have a 7 inch dick. And then there's people that are like 3.5, like, man, I'd love to have a 5 inch dick, you know, just to like fill in that perspective, you know. The D does not increase lifespan, golden mind. However, taking Cialis might, just because it helps keep out cardiovascular disease since it helps dilate all the blood vessels in your body. So like it's gonna help keep plaque from laying long term. You don't need a lot of Cialis to do this either. Okay, I think I've seen this question before. Mustache, you have the cavitation therapy device. Is it on the chest, specifically placing the handle directly over the nipple area? Always had stubborn fat in that area. Um, I wouldn't go that much higher. So like your limit's going to be up to here. And that's just because we're going to get to the point where it's going to be mostly bone and muscle tissue rather than breast tissue, I guess. Sorry for saying you have man boobs, but um, this can also like mess with your heart potentially. So you really don't want to get too close to like stay on the farther side and stay relatively low. But like again, I was riffing right before this really got hot. I've already lost like 5 millimeters here, and I have done it 2 or 3 times here. And then this is being a little more stubborn, but since there's more fat, I think it's harder for it to like really come down, if that makes sense, since it's like such a stubborn area for me. But like I've already seen improvements here, like 2 or 3 millimeters, and like hopefully since I cleaned up my diet, it dries out and we'll have a much better result from that. Well, like I love cavitation therapy, especially now that I've figured out the right power. Basically, the leaner you get, the less power you need. So like if you're talking about your nipples, start at half power, and if it doesn't change, actually lower the power a bit to make sure you're not just going into your pecs, for example. Trancus, how much can I grow if only manual stretches and jelking? So I did something relatively similar. People consider me a relatively fast responder, but in 18 months, I put on like an inch and a half in length with manuals and jelking in my first year and a half. So like the problem with manuals is that it's hard to stick to long term. And there's going to be a point where it's going to be next to impossible to stretch out your penis enough without your arms physically fatiguing. Geo, should we get the DIY vibe on Amazon or should you wait until we come out with yours? Because I have a feeling you're working on something ingenious. So it is literally going to be the same power as the thing on Amazon. The only thing that's different is that it's going to have built-in straps. So it's going to be really affordable, but it's going to be not that advanced. The advanced stuff comes down later on in a like separate set. We can talk more about this when we actually have a full plan with my team with the release and development of it. But if you want to try vibrations, there is no reason why you should be waiting for my device. I would just recommend going to my site or getting a neoprene sleeve somewhere else. But our retention kit basically is what I use to keep the device on, whether it be for pumping or for length work. And what I do is I tuck the sleeve under the vibrator and then wrap the rest of the sleeve around me from the other side. So that way there's space between the extender and my dick and the vibrator, but it's only one piece of fabric and I don't need the sock anymore. Ethan, non-typical question. How to develop the ideal mindset for PE? Like in the gym, just do it and go home. Sometimes I keep thinking I'm growing and my whole day I keep consuming, although I know I'm fine. You're talking to the wrong guy with this. Okay. If it really first comes down to figuring out why you want to grow so much, so bad, like if it's like an obsession, why are you obsessed? Like, are you so insecure that's the only thing that you can think about? Is it such a strong sexual desire of yours that it's literally all you can think about? And then that's gonna help you like change your mindset. If it's insecurity, you gotta look at the statistics, realize over half the world is less than 5 inches, for example, and like just be happy with who you are. You can be happy while still improving, and I think a lot of people miss that. And then if it's a sexual desire thing, stop being such a horny little freak. But like that's going to be more like keeping your mind off of it and keeping your mind occupied than being constantly drawn to your sexual desires. I don't think I'm going to be lifting, guys. I still feel like poop, but I'll keep answering questions for the next 20 minutes or so. Okay. Let's see. When vump, oh my goodness. When you vibe while pumping, did you do the interval pumpings or steady pressure? I do interval pumping, but I'm also using my smart pump, so I don't even have to worry about it. I just program it, set it, and forget it. Um, I would probably still recommend interval pumping for this, just to cut down on edema. But this is new territory. I could be wrong. That one, pumping conditioning routine before legit pumping routine thoughts. So like the thing is like if we're looking for that intense erection, as we're going to kind of touch on Forsaken's question, that intense erection is going to be a sign that you're near your limit. So like that feeling in the pump, that it feels like, wow, this is a strong erection, that's your limit, then you're already working that tissue, right? So you don't have to really worry about conditioning so much with pumping as much as doing progressive overload to get to like the normal sweet spot. But like if you're gaining well below that sweet spot, don't try to push it. Like don't make gains harder than it has to be. And I think that's where a lot of people messed up with PE in the old days, is that they'd see gains at like, let's say 30 minutes of time under tension, right? And they're like, okay, if I do an hour, my gains are going to double. But really what happens, you stress out the tissue so much that it doesn't do anything. So then they're like, okay, so that didn't work. I'm going to do 2 hours now. And then again, they actually cause more issues. And what they really needed to do is take a couple weeks off and then come back at 30 minutes under pressure, 30 minutes time under tension rather. But yeah, in general, err on the side of caution. I think a lot of people try to rush to the what advanced guys like myself do when you really don't need to do that. Okay, Forsaken. If the average erection is 4 inches of mercury to 8 inches, then to grow girth, we need to pump. You need to surpass this number. And if it takes months to get up to 8 inches of mercury, what does that mean for the first few months? So first of all, we say 5 to 7 to start, right? Most of you guys will be able to tell when it's going to be too much pressure. So like it's going to be relatively intense pumping up. It's not going to be painful, but like you're going to be like, wow, this is something else. That's what you want to be at. And then over time, you kind of get used to that feeling, so it's not going to be as intense. But when you first start off, you'll know when you're at your cooking point, essentially. Also, not every guy is going to be 8 inches of mercury to start. That's going to be like if you already have superb erection quality. And from what I remember, you don't do that much cardio, Forsaken. So I would err on the side of caution that you're probably going to be closer to 5 inches of mercury starting off than 8 inches of mercury. But like, if you don't feel much pressure with 5 inches of mercury, there's nothing stopping you from trying 6 inches the next day, then 7 inches the next day, then potentially 8. But I really wouldn't go higher than 8 to start. Whoa. PG, also, do you agree with Hink in his video about Cialis having a permanent effect at extended low doses? I believe it's at least 3 to 6 months. Anything that causes long-term dilation will cause long-term changes. So like with Cialis, if you have a minor increase in dilation all throughout your body, your blood vessels are going to be used to being in that shape and it will just stay in that shape longer. There's a chance it might go back to like baseline shape because it doesn't need to be in that bigger shape, but like that's going to take at least 3 to 4 months to like circumvent that. But I guess I agree with that. I didn't watch the video. I'm a very bad friend and business partner. How long did you do your manuals to gain that 1.5 inches? Again, this was a decade ago at this point. So I believe it was like 10 to 15 minutes in the shower, stretching, and then I'd run upstairs. That's where my room was, and then jelk for 10 to 15 minutes, and then that was it. So 30 minutes total. And if you look at my current routines on Pornhub and forum.peakmalphysique.com, that's basically what I did, just with more specific stuff to physiotherapy rather than whatever routine I went off at the time. Jeez. Hi BD, I'm trying to get a bigger pumping tube, 2.5 from 2, but it hurts the base. I tried using the silicone base, but does not help. Any ideas? Where does it hurt? So like if it's hurting your testicles, get a pump sleeve and then get a ball stretcher, and that's going to keep your testicles pretty far away from everything else. Then if it's like hurting at the crease of your legs, you actually have little lymph vessels here and here, lymph nodes rather. That's going to be a little annoying to deal with, and you're going to have to change how you sit when you pump to avoid them. But like if you're having pressure like on the nerves, like the nerve bundle on top, like the suspensory ligament, you're going to want a really thick pumping sleeve. I can't think of a good one off the top of my head, but like I know there's some guy on Reddit selling them, and I think this is something I wanted to try on my own. But like if you get the moldable earwax stuff, You can make like a form-fitting seal for your pump. I want to try it first before I even make a video on it, but like that could be an option as well. Basically, you just want to limit the pressure and dissipate it more throughout the rest of your body, or hips. I think I figured something out about pumping related to a treatment. I go form and back, go back, then slowly reduce over a minute, then slowly pump, max, repeat, rinse. Similar to disc tissues, the disc in the back that gets stretched. On a release, fill with blood, and the pump goes back to expand. Then you slow the release. Sorry, my underwear. I'm a very sweaty guy, so my underwear's pinching. But the slow release allows blood to fill the capillaries, and flexing in this way helps, keeps them expanded. So like if you look at my interval length, not interval length protocol, what is it called? Interval pumping. Something similar is going on where we pump up, hold for a bit, release the pressure, and then like if you're using the smart pump, it's a relatively slow fill, and that does lead to more expansion over time. So it could be similar to what you're talking about. I don't really know much about chiropractic to help you out. Sorry, I need to stand for a minute. And I might do some light triceps to make this hour worth it down here. Which one? This one. Okay. Okay. Do you still go balls deep with your GF? With my wife? Yes. And she encourages it. She literally grabs my ass and pulls me deeper. This is a new development, though. It's the only thing we have issues with is doggy, and it comes down to how she's built. So her uterus kind of goes towards her spine. So that makes it that with my upwards curve, I literally crush it in doggy. So we don't do doggy. But other than that, like my size is only really an issue in doggy. So all right. Is that a good feeder set? 10 minutes of Levy light manual stretching, and then 5 minutes or 5 sets, 2 minutes of interval pumping at 70% of working pressure. If not, what to change? I wouldn't necessarily think you need to do manual stretches, and we're looking at the wrong corner. You need to do manual stretches with feeder sets. It could help, but like you're better off doing light stretches throughout the day when you pee. And my camera's going nuts more than anything else. Okay, that should be straight now. Let's see. If you want to go from barely 17, so like 7 inches long for us Americans, to if you want to go from 17 centimeters with pumping after manuals and now hitting 18 centimeters in the pump, is that a good sign, right? You're having positive changes. Of course, it's a good sign, my guy. Like, I'm just laughing because this question comes up a lot on the Reddit. Like, it was probably at least once a day. Like, I'm bigger in the pump. Does that mean it's working? What do you think? You know? Vibrations update. Not so much recently. It's only been like what, a week since my last update, maybe 2. I'm definitely slowly getting bigger still. Like slowly as in like faster than normal, but like it's not going to be that perceptible until a month from now. When I have been measuring like right after a retention pumping set, and I'm like 9.25 erect. So there's something going on. I'm still growing. It's just a matter of if it's going to keep up for the rest of the month. There's no real reason why it shouldn't, but you never know. My hardest thing is getting all the feeder sets in right now. Like I've missed yesterday's PM session, and I'm going to miss today's PM session, but like it hasn't slowed me down in the slightest, so we'll see. Geos, what is a retention pumping set? I'm just answering this real quick. 70% of your working pressure twice a day, AM and PM. did I say 20%? 70%. So like if you pump at 10 inches of mercury, do 7 inches of mercury, 10 minutes straight in the morning and then at night, and that's going to help train for length and girth potentially, like to keep that shape. Um, PG. Also, I can't do my manual routine anymore as my personal life, but 10 minutes of pumping and then 10 minutes of the cockering with what is that, 40 minutes of manuals? I mean, that might be a little bit overkill with manuals more than anything. Uh, I would not really change anything though, except your living situation so you can do it. um, how is the idea of 3 sets of 5 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes off for 20 minutes and eating best of both worlds or overwork? That's probably going to be overworks for beginners. I can't remember exactly what I wrote in my beginner's guide, but like I do have them doing some kind of feeder sets for Girth in particular when they're doing Girth focus routines. Um, 20 minutes is a lot to start with. I think we start at 10 minutes total and then we work up to 20 over the next 3 months. But again, if you're going for length, I would focus more on the stretches and then doing the feeder sets to supplement it than anything else. If a person has been extending for 6 months or more and doesn't like pumping, can a person start clamping? Um, I would still recommend you pump for a bit just to get an idea of what the pressure should feel like. But like clamping is intense as fuck. I'm not gonna say not do it because it's just another tool in the box, but like if you have no clue or you're already sensitive to the pressure in pumping, clamping might be even worse. If it's like a lymphatic issue, then yeah, switch to clamping. But if it's the pressure issue, you're in for a rude awakening if you try to clamp. BD, thank you for checking my question, but you read it wrong. I meant if it takes 8 inches of mercury to get girth gains while pumping the first few months while working up the pressure. Well, I think you misunderstood what I'm saying. Is like our starting range is 4 to 6 inches of mercury, if that's what the normal erection range is, right? We say 5 to 7. We need to adapt the routine to match you. So, like, if you don't feel the pressure at the lower pressures, it's more than likely a sign that your erections are going to be naturally higher pressure. So, you pump up until you get to the point where you feel the pressure, but not like excruciating pain. And that could be anywhere from literally 4 inches of mercury to 8 inches of mercury when you start. But you got to be a little bit smart about it and figure out what works for you more so than going off very strict guidelines, right? If you are under pressure pumping, you still will probably see some sort of gains because you are causing overexpansion. It's just not going to be fatiguing work. So, like, I see about a quarter of an inch of expansion while I do my feeder sets, even though that is definitely less pressure that I normally use for girth work, right? What's happening is the tunica is literally stretching tight, and what that does is then teaches the collagen fibrils to lay in unison in the expanded shape. So that way you have no like rolled over tissues when you're erect long term, and that's going to lead to size. So you will still see gains, and this is what the main basis of newbie gains is that change in current size and shape more than building new tissue. Let's see. Geos, how long should I use those light stretches after you pee? Literally, you should be doing it, just get in the habit of doing it every time. Like every time forever. Like it's going to help you stay elongated throughout the day. Is going to train your flaccid to be exceptionally long over time. And it's going to help like guide the collagen to take that shape and place the collagen in that shape. So as much of a hassle it might be, you'll literally just autopilot eventually, and like someone's gonna see you at the urinal doing it, and then you're gonna have to like, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. What? What is the correlation of queef and size? I don't know. I like my sexual experience, queef has not been very common, only in doggy, and that's because of like basically she's set up to pull in air that way, but like normal positions or other positions is not so much an issue. Uh Obviously if you have a bigger plunger, you can force more air in, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal or that much of a correlation. That was a weird question. All right, guys, we've been going for about 70 minutes. I'm gonna stay on for like 2 or 3 more minutes to see if any more questions come in, but if not, I'm gonna head out because my wife actually has a friend coming over and I gotta clean up a bit. It doesn't even seem like there's questions coming in. So actually, scratch that. I'm gonna end this here. So thank you for tuning in. I am going to be doing this at 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, so that is 50 minutes from now, but tomorrow. So hopefully I'll see you then. I'm trying to have Perv on the live stream, but he's been not answering his phone, so it might just be me soloing it again. But you know, if you enjoyed this, you'll enjoy that, and I'll be in my office so I can actually like demonstrate shit with anatomy software and all that. But you know, thanks for tuning in though, guys, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow. Forsake and ask me that question tomorrow, okay?